I'd like to bring in Professor Stefan Doerr now, who is the director of the Centre for Wildfire Research at the Swansea University. Great to have you with us, Stefan. Now, these current wildfires that we're seeing, I mean, they are just absolutely awful. But from a scientific point of view, is there the evidence to suggest that we are going to see more of these kinds of fires in the future?
Absolutely. The evidence is very clear. What we've seen worldwide is that the number of days with what we call extreme fire weather, so weather that makes fire particularly fast moving, particularly high flames, so conditions very susceptible to fire, have increased around the world by over 50% in the last 40 years. And the Mediterranean region, so southern France, Spain, Portugal, Greece, have been particularly badly affected by this. And this is going to get worse. All climate models are in agreement that the number of days where these extreme conditions are going to increase. There's no question about this.
So there's no question about that. This is going to get worse. If this is going to become a more common occurrence, then, Professor, what needs to be done?
Well, there are a number of things that need to be done. But clearly, first of all, we need to do absolutely everything to reduce the further acceleration of climate change. So that means everything we can do to reduce carbon emissions and ultimately have a net zero situation. The second part, of course, is very well coordinated land management, because it's usually too late by the time you have these extreme fire events. Of course, we can fight them, but it's extremely resource intensive, and very often we are not at least rapidly successful in containing those fires. So actually preventing them to occur in the first place is really important. That can be done by what we would call fuel management. So removing dry vegetation from the landscape, especially in near urban areas, for example, is one thing we can do.
So that's perhaps in areas that have a little bit more vegetation. But I think London yesterday, for example, is an urban centre. I mean, that was a massive wake-up call, wasn't it? Authorities said that they were stretched to the limit. So what do they need to do in sort of urban areas to make sure that they're not caught off guard in the future so that they can coordinate more easily?
Yeah, this event was a real wake-up call. More buildings destroyed from vegetation fires than in any time in recorded history in the UK. So definitely a wake-up call. However, at least some of the buildings that were destroyed were close to dry grass, relatively dense high grass. It would have been relatively simple. You can see that in the image now. It would have been relatively simple to ensure that that grass isn't actually so dense, so high, and doesn't reach the back gardens, and equally the back gardens themselves would need to be cleared from very flammable vegetation. This is something that's happening in many countries around the world: Spain, Portugal, Greece, Australia, California, other parts of the US. That's normal to be done. Of course, in the UK, we're not quite used to these extreme conditions, and we were essentially caught off guard.
Well, great to hear a practical and evidence-based approach and recommendations there from Professor Stefan Doerr, who is the director of the Centre for Wildfire Research at Swansea University. Great to talk to you. Thanks for being with us.